all-new episode of the Jeremy White Podcast, Tuesday at noon. Available wherever you stream. Catch up on past interviews and episodes on demand now. Subscribe so you don't miss any of it.
Up there, you've got Jeremy White. He is Montreal's #1 on-air personality, winning 20 books in a row.
There you go. That's the slogan.
Nice. nice to meet you, Jeremy.
That's going to be my lower third from now on. Jeez.
And also now on in Toronto. So he's our #1 DJ in the top 2 markets in Canada.
There you go.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah, and I play a lot of the artists that you've worked with, which is going to be really cool to talk to you about. So it's going to be awesome.
Fun, all right.
And I'm a gear slut too, so I'm looking at all the gear behind it. And I'm like, fucking right. Look at all this shit.
Welcome to Guitar Center. Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Jeremy, let's go.
Well, listen, I'm already recording over here. I mean, let's just get right into it. Welcome to the show, Butch Walker. Look, there he is, everybody.
Yeah.
Wow. So before we get started, I just want to walk us through what's going on in that studio. Is that your studio, or are you set up shop somewhere, or?
Yeah, it's just like a personal studio space I have here at my house. It's on the property, and I just it's where I can make records, and I have a place. Right now, I have a studio out in LA that I've had for a while.
Right.
And this has kind of been where I've been more often now, is here in Tennessee, and I really like it. It's peaceful, and I can make a lot of noise.
Well, it's funny because Nashville's sort of turned into LA East Coast at this point. That's where everybody's going.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. And I'm to be clear, I'm like 45 minutes outside of Nashville, so I'm not really in Nashville proper, but which I'm okay with, because it's a nice place to visit, but I don't want to live there, as they say.
Yeah, you don't want all the distractions.
No, it's pretty distracting. I don't need to get my shoes thrown up on by some bachelorette, party at 2:00 in the afternoon, or get run over by a pedal tavern. It's a little out of hand. But
now, as you know, Jeremy, he's worked with Taylor Swift, Pink, Keith Urban, Green Day, and a bunch of others. But let's start really where it's the most important. SouthGang.
Yep.
Your
that's
band.
Important.
Okay, that's right. SouthGang.
I don't know if we were that important, but sure, yeah, we can start there.
Well, let me just quickly start with.
There's a lot of fun.
And your drummer had a great name, by the way.
Slug.
Mitch.
Yeah,
Well,
Mitch McLean. Yeah, none of our names were real, by the way, as you do. None of them were real.
Yeah.
So it was sort of like, we had, we were small town boys, that were with big dreams and boring names. And so we needed to fix that. So when we moved to LA, we all literally changed our names from Jack to Jace, Doug to Mitch, Brad to Butch, and Jimmy to Jesse. So That's what we did. Yeah. It was also really hard to, if you're out there with all these guys named Buzz fucking Lightyear and all these weird names, it's you had to have something kind of special,
CC DeVille. You can't just
Greg. you can't compete with Cadillac Coupe DeVille,
No, you can't.
Yeah, so it's we had to do something, because Izzy Stradlin, and Axl and Slash, those we loved. We loved Guns N' Roses. Our favorite bands when we moved out there were Guns N' Roses and even older Aerosmith. So that we loved blues inspired hard rock. So
yeah,
okay. None. Were you guys into Van Halen at all? Or
big time. I'm sorry, I thought that went without saying.
Right.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be talking right now, because I literally, it changed my life, and I started playing guitar when I heard Van Halen 1 for the first time, So it's that's obvious. Van Halen would be an obvious choice. But at that time in '88, I'd already moved into many, many more new, at the time, bands that, so Van Halen was already almost classic at that point, right? So they already had Sammy Hagar singing for them, which was amazing, but it was already, they were well into legend status, whereas we were what was considered bubbling up at the time, 86, 87, 88, it would have been GNR, and it would have been, I mean, God, I don't even.
What was going on at that
start.
time? Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood.
Yeah, Motley Crue was a massive band for me. Matter of fact, Motley Crue, it started in '84 for me. I was extremely into Motley Crue by '84, and that was a huge band for me. So it was ironic that later in life I'd become friends with them and work with some of them, and still to this day talk to a couple of them. But like at the time they were larger than life, because you're talking about moving out there right before they dropped Dr. Feelgood. And that album, it was like one of the most incredible and biggest, heavy metal commercial successful records of all time. Yeah. On par with Appetite for Construction. I say construction because I've always said I always wanted to have an album called Appetite for Construction with a guy on the front wearing a thong and a tool belt.
Nice. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Bob the Builder on the cover.
Totally. But Appetite, for Destruction was a huge record. We played 6 songs, I believe, off of it when we were in a cover band, which was literally, we were a cover band up to the day we left to move to Los Angeles, because you couldn't play originals in rock clubs in Atlanta. And Atlanta was the closest city to where we grew up, in this little town, Cartersville and Rome, Georgia area. So it was, there was no future yet in Atlanta for original rock bands. Not until the day we left, and then it became Black Crowes and Jackal and all these bands that were like playing original music. But at the time, we were like, we got to go to LA. So, but we were playing like so many songs off of Appetite and stuff like that, because that's what we had to do to save our money up to move to LA.
What about Def Leppard? Were you into Hysteria, or were you more into like the organic records?
No, well, Def Leppard was huge for me too in early '80s. Yeah. When I got
High and Dry.
Pyromania, and then I went back and discovered High and Dry and On Through the Night, which were huge records for me as well. So that those first 3, the first, like the Mutt Lange ones, obviously, like, I think he did on Through the Night and High and Dry as well, but I know he did High and Dry and Pyromania. And Pyromania was just a massive, massive, massive record. And when I would see Photograph come on MTV after school every day, I was just like, oh my God, I've got to get one of those shirts. I've got to have a Union Jack sleeveless shirt. I've got to have an Ibanez Destroyer, the guitar that Phil Collin played. When I say that I was a super fan for these bands, you just keep naming them off and I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I mean,
Jeremy, do you still have Phil Collins' guitar? Because you have his original guitar in your house, don't you?
No.
You gave it back?
Oh my God. Yeah. That's amazing. Was it a Destroyer?
It was it was actually, it was a replica of the Destroyer. My buddy Victor from Montreal, we're all tight with Phil, and he kind of had this replica done of one of the, like, the Destroyer, but with like this monstrous neck on it, and like just like the way Phil likes it, and Phil was playing it, he's just like, I want this.
Amazing. That's cool.
So, but I want to ask you this about SouthGang. You got to work with Desmond Child on Tainted Angel.
Yes.
How does a band that's newly signed, doesn't have anything going on radio, you're just all fresh, how do you get Desmond Child? And, does he have these talks with you, and you sort of stare at him and go, ooh, I like what he's doing? Is that where you learned to be a producer? Is that where you started going, ooh, I should pay attention to this guy? Because
okay, yeah. So my hero was Desmond at the time, because I was like, okay, I see the pattern. He's written some of the biggest songs in hard rock on the radio at the time, and so we needed help with our songwriting. They wanted to put us with songwriters, which I totally understood, because we were just a cover band a year before. So we wanted to be.
Slug wasn't writing for you?
I mean, I was like still trying to figure out how to write myself, and it was one of the only advantages of being one of the last major record album deals given to a band like us at the time, which was a big, huge record deal, 6-figure deal, and we were like, okay, I said right to the A&R guy, get me Desmond Child, get us in the room with him, and we can make a record that will be way better than what we can do with anybody else. That was our mentality. And it happened. And I think,
Wow.
he liked the band. We went and did a crash course every day, and it was me, Jace, and Jace and Jesse, and we went to his house in Santa Monica, and we would go and do writing sessions, and we would sit there and write, and he would put us through the ringer. He was a tyrant, but a wonderful, he was incredible, and it was, at the time I was starstruck and mesmerized with his abilities to do these songs and string these lyrics together and be poetic like this. And I was learning, he definitely, he looked at me one time, I remember, when I had a lyric idea, and it had something, it was a song title that had love in the title, and he was just feeling catty that day. And, Desmond, he was very catty. And he said, what do you know about love? You're not even a person yet. And I was like, oh, fuck. And
Sounds like something Desmond would say.
Yeah, but I wanted to kill him. And then I realized he's right. I've never even been in love. All I've done is had a bunch of sex. I don't even know anything about heartbreak. I've never been in a marriage or divorced or had kids. I don't know anything about love. So he was right. And so I sat there and just took everything he said to heart. And it was a great experience. And it definitely, I still to this day, and when I see and talk to Desmond now, I make sure to tell him all the time, I'm like, you taught me how to write songs, and without you, I wouldn't have a career.
Wow.
Did he teach you to produce as well?
No, he was not a technical person. We were in the studio with a guy named Howard Benson, who at the time was more unknown. Right. He did not have the success he had when the 90s happened. Right. Late 90s, early 2000s rather. And so, I think the only bands he had done at the time were Tough and Pretty Boy Floyd and Bang Tango and some other bands that were lesser known. But we knew those bands. They were on the Strip at the time. And he was a hard guy he was a hard nut to crack in the studio, and he was tough, but I definitely learned a lot because I was like, one day this is what I'm going to do, whether anybody helps me or tells me or not, I'm going to do this. Right. And so I learned a lot. But I learned a lot on what to do and a lot of what not to do, I think. And also just being in bands later in life and struggling to ever have any money, I had to always have my 4-track, 8-track, 16-track, whatever I had. That was all I had to make our records. So I had to do them myself because we never had money in our bands. So that's, I kind of just learned by trial and error.
And it's funny you said that, Desmond wasn't necessarily a technical guy. I mean, he's always been sort of the songwriting dude. And I really feel like at the time, and even today, people kind of misconstrue good producer for good sounding records. I mean, at the end of the day, a shitty engineer will make a great song sound like shit. So, I mean, if Desmond's not a technically sound guy, if you have a great engineer in there, well, then, okay, he'll get you the cannonball snare and, the big guitars and all those things.
Well, that's also, he was the executive producer on the record, and executive producer usually doesn't mean somebody that comes in and starts turning knobs. That's somebody who's overseeing it and has the vision and comes in and almost more like a Rick Rubin. And I tell people that all the time. Producer is a vast term. It's a vast description. It means a lot of things. It can mean strictly a knob jockey where they are good at getting sounds and setting up microphones and dialing in tones and have zero to say about arrangements and songs and lyrics or anything. And they just work with either good bands or bad bands, and what you get is what you get. And then there's some guys that don't touch any knobs and don't know how to do any of that stuff and will literally just be almost a negotiator or a party planner or even a psychiatrist for the band. They'll literally sit there and say, this is not right. We need to do this. We need to sound like that. All right, get with the engineer and y'all make it happen. I'll be back tomorrow. And that, wow. In some cases, I'll be back in a month. But
that's Rick Rubin.
You said it, not me. But I think that's the thing is, he's a genius though. And he definitely was more of an A&R guy. He definitely knew who to put with the right people. He was a visionary. That's important. I think it's just, and so I wanted to encompass all of that. I wanted to try to strive for all of it. I didn't know that I could, and I certainly don't know that I still can. But I always try to do that. I wanted to know how to engineer everything, how to mic everything, how to play everything, how to write a song. So it's a lot more than 10,000 hours you got to put into it when you do that. But I got to say, it can be rewarding, and it's and I like doing all of it. It's a hands-on thing for me, and so I guess I learned from all of those guys growing up when I would pay attention to how their methods were.
So I have two questions to follow up on that. Just real quick, what's your method? And you look at Jeremy over there, he's making a record right now, his first solo record. He wants to try this. As a producer, what's the first thing you say to him on day one? Bring me the songs, bring me the idea. Like, you look at him and you say, all right, young whippersnapper, here's where we start.
Well, that's the first thing. If you don't have songs, then what's the point? So it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't turn songs into good songs that are just, starting rough. But, let's be honest. I don't want that much work to have to do. I don't want to have to take 12 songs for an album that are not up to par and then have to, tear them apart and rewrite them that's not the band, the artist is not necessarily going to be stoked on that either. So I think you just have to find the marriage from the get-go of okay, I understand what you're doing. I believe in these songs. Now let's talk about the vision and the sound and what we're going to strive for. And I think it's just a day-to-day process. Sometimes by the third day, you might bow out of a record because you couldn't see eye to eye on that, but it's got to start with songs. And I know that's so cliche to say, but it really is true. You have to have good songs.
Yeah, because I guess you could have the best sounding snare and guitars in the world, but if the song's shitty, like I said, even with the engineer,
dude, a kick drum sound ain't going to change a kid's life. And I say that all the time. And sure, maybe some engineers would beg to differ and want to fight me on that, but and there's been some pretty great kick drum sounds out there, but I don't put a lot of precedent on that. I would rather just go I know how to get a good kick drum sound, but it literally, or even let's just call it a drum performance. It might change a young up and coming drummer's life, but I care more about the song. I care more about the lyrics and what's happening in the whole overall performance and the craft of it, and whether it's going to make people dance or move or cry or be angry or mad or sad or whatever. Just a reaction is good. So I think it's important to get the songs right, because you just said it. It's you can't you can record something great, but it still might be dog shit if it's a bad song.
No, totally. I got a question for you. So, looking back at your discography and even more recently with stuff with the more modern stuff, and you look at a record, you work with Pink and you produce a song, then you got, somebody else producing one song, another one, then you got Max Martin writing 4 hits and, for producing 4 of those tracks. Do all of the producers of the record get together on a conference call and discuss what the sound of the record's going to be like? Or
no,
you do your own thing and Max Martin does his own thing? And
no,
how does that work? Is it a collaboration? Or
the pop world is a different beast. And the disclaimer is I don't really do a lot of pop records anymore. Mm-hmm. It's been a long time since I've done anything straight up pop. And that's mainly not necessarily because of the music. I love a good pop song and I've always enjoyed it. And I like making them, but the process and the politics of it is frustrating, can be frustrating. Well, because there's a lot of ships. There's a lot of ships in the bay, and there's a lot of captains, and there's a lot of people making decisions, and there's also a lot of people cutting off other people behind their back. It's a manipulative business. Yeah. I don't ever want to come off as jaded, because I'm very fucking fortunate and lucky to be still making records and loving music. Yeah. But I just didn't always love where it was headed. I didn't love that it was you're right. It wasn't collaborative. It was, these people over here are just trying to beat what you're doing. It's more about getting the single. It's more about getting the single and having, there was a lot of underhanded shit happening. There'd be a lot of stealing other people's song ideas and getting it to the finish line quicker and stuff. And that's it's just gross. I just was like, that's gross to me. But I get it. Maybe a lot of people are into that. It's like, it's like being a scammer on a phone call. Those people don't have a conscience about it, about ripping off some old lady, in Kansas. They're just doing it. And they're like, hell yeah, fuck yeah. I just ripped that woman off. That's badass. Whereas like it felt a little bit like that in the Hollywood pop scene with producers.
Well, and Jim Valance told us the same thing. He said back in the day when he was writing, and Holly Knight was there, and Desmond, they would all send songs to Aerosmith and all, and it was about getting your song.
That's
and
right.
They had to basically fight each other backstage to get their song. And
just manipulating an artist to be like, no, fuck them. You got to listen to mine.
Yeah, fuck Desmond. We got to go. Use my song. Right.
I got really tired of that. That was gross, and I didn't want to be a part of it. And so I find that I live a little better and sleep a little better at night, knowing I'm not trying to make records that are based on behind the scenes moves and more just trying to make music, I mean, regardless of what kind of music,
But if Pink came to you and said, you're going to be the producer on my next album in 2022, I'm not calling anybody in, it's just you do it.
Oh yeah, and by the way, I'm not saying that I'm unappreciative or I wouldn't be a team player. Yeah. There's certain people I would make exceptions for, Pink being one of them, because not only are we terrific. Great, she's incredible, and she's one of the best in the pop world, but she's also a good friend, and she's got scruples and morals, and she's really she does not play that game, and she's also not complicit to it. And there's been artists I've worked with that were complicit to it and just play dumb to it. And she doesn't do that. She won't play that. Even though she's, done her fair share of records with Max Martin, and it's a thing. It's you got Jack Antonoff and Max Martin and all these big pop guys that when people go, oh, they're available, do you want to work with them? You'd be stupid not to try. So as an artist. And so, and the results usually ends up being great. So it's like, I would do it in a heartbeat, but like I said, I just don't do a lot of records like that with multiple producers on them anymore. I don't like that process, but I will say I'm super grateful if I get a song on a record these days. I don't want anybody to think that I'm just like, this is my sandbox, get out. It's not like that. I don't want to be old man yells at the sky. I'm very proud of my career, and I'm very, very grateful that I get any work at all. Because doing production and writing for 20 years, I like to think is a fucking anomaly, and I'm just glad that I still get to even make them at all. I don't care if they chart. I don't care if they're successful. I just want to be able to do the work and enjoy what I'm doing.
Yeah. One of my favorite songs off the last Struts record was Fire Part 1, and you were the producer on that one.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Talk about that session, because it's interesting to hear how it goes from the studio version to how they perform it live. It's it's such a lively performance. Even the studio version, the drums and it could be programmed, but it also sounds live. Talk about the production of that song a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's all live. I mean, not live band in a room, but definitely all tracked live. And Getz is a great drummer. Everybody's an incredible player. Adam's a great guitar player. And they also, it just kind of felt like walking into, with them, it was beautiful. They walked in and they were dressed and looking and acting exactly like I did when I was their age. So nice. It was really fun to be like, oh my God, this is like me in 89, 88. And it was cool. But at the same time, they were young and they were young and hungry and
young and dangerous.
Young and dangerous, to be a quote for the song. And they they were open to all these great, all these cool rock ideas that we did in the track. And he and I even did the dual lead solo together live. Mm-hmm. He and I played it together because he liked my guitar playing, and I would always be like, oh, we need to do we need to do a Thin Lizzy dual lead solo right here. This would be so great.
Yeah.
And they have the knowledge too. They're like, they love Mott the Hoople and they love Slade.
All
and
that old glam shit.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is like, I'm like a kid in a candy store. I get to just recreate these sounds and make this vibe, but like with a little bit more of a modern take on it. And you know, the singer is a force. He is a fucking force. Luke is he's a monster singer. Like he would just one take everything and he's the vision. He walked around and like knew exactly what he wanted. He was pacing constantly. And it was really cool to work with those guys just for that reason alone, you know?
Mm-hmm. Now, a session like that, like talking about, you know, getting those vintage sounds and bringing it more into a modern era. I mean, are you miking up cabinets in the studio? Is it all digital or?
No. I use I still mic cabinets and use amplifiers. Wow. Yeah. Isn't that weird?
That's bizarre.
I know, but I mean, I love modelers. There's a Line 6 Helix right there.
Yep.
But I use everything. I use cabinets. I use combo amps. I use mics. I use an aux cab simulator with real amps. I use a Helix, which is no real amp. I use it all, and it's all like based on just what's in my head. I'm like, oh, I know this thing does that very well. I'm going to go do that with this right now. Yeah. And so it doesn't matter, man. I've played shit for people and literally told them that it was the opposite of what they said it was or what they think it is. And they're like, oh yeah, I can tell. And it's like, so full of shit. It's like, you know, they'll be like, is that a real amp on there? And I'll be like, yes, it is. And they'll be like, oh, I can tell it's really warm. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a Helix.
You used a ribbon mic on that, didn't you?
Yeah. I used a ribbon mic profile.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I mean, people don't know, at the end of the day,
unless you're Mutt Lange, you're not going to be able to tell a BAE 1073 to a Neve. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I mean, those records are incredible. You know, I mean, those records are incredible, and there's a lot of synthetic recording on those. The drums aren't real on a lot of them. Yeah, they're programmed on a Lindrum with overdubbed cymbals.
Fairlight
Fairlights and guitars sampled and Rockman sustainers and Rockman, amplifier. Dude, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. I am not a purist that way.
Yeah, I don't think Rick Allen has played on a Def Leppard record since 1982, quite frankly.
Yeah, but you know what? He gets to go out. But he gets to go out there live and beat the shit out of the drums with that one arm and kill it, and it's amazing.
Yep.
And more power to that band for sticking with him on that. They could have replaced him in a heartbeat, and it's like, nope, that's our brother. We're gonna revolutionize live drumming.
But they did by creating those pedals and that drum kit. That changed amazing. Everything afterwards.
Yeah, and they're playing to tracks. There's background vocals canned and all that stuff. But find an artist that's not doing that these days. It's weird. I mean, it used to be like people died over that shit. Milli Vanilli died. They committed suicide when people found out they were like lip syncing. Now it's like people are just like, yeah, I did it. Who cares? You know? Yeah. It's wild. It's like it's a different world.
I think it's all about the show at the end of the day. I don't care if they're playing the tracks or not. If it elevates the performance and I feel like I'm getting my money's worth, well, hey, more power to them.
Yeah, I've gone to seen one woman bands and one man bands play live to tracks, and it's a full band going on, and it's just them singing, and the show is incredible. Yeah, and it's like I'm glad that we're
changed the word. We used to have concerts. Now we have shows.
We have shows. Yeah, yeah, because it's not a concert. Yeah,
right. We changed the word.
Yeah, true that.
Yeah. You know?
What's the most important part of your recording process these days?
I'd say, you know, I care a lot about the tracks, on getting the tracks right, and the vocal is very important to me. So I want to make sure that if I'm working with a singer that needs help, that I help them and get a great vocal. The vocal, like I said, a vocal can change someone's life with what they're saying and what they're singing about. A lot of times they're an incredible singer and I don't need to tell them a fucking thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, let's just record it well and get it down. Yeah. So, but it's all those things together. It's the sum of the parts for sure, you know?
Right. I think we're gonna have to set up a part 2 because this was really fun. I've got so many more questions, Mitch.
I know.
And we got to run off to talk to John 5.
I know. I'm so sorry. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this with me, and that we got to jump. But I'm happy to do a part 2 with you whenever you want. So
yeah,
absolutely.
I would love to. And I'll just quickly say, SR71 is a band that you had and they had a song called "Right Now" that you wrote. I
co-wrote. Yeah, thank you.
I love that song. That is such a good song. And they had a Mitch in the band too. So
they did. Yes, they did.
Another good reason. And I saw them open up for Bon Jovi. So that's just probably the first song in the 2000s that I liked. I went, oh, here's a new song. Okay,
that's cool. That was one of the first songs that like put me on the map a little bit for sure.
You know that song at all, Jeremy? Right Now by SR.
I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it.
It's a great. I don't want to say pop song, but it's
pop punk almost.
Pop rock, pop rock. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah,
cool. It's a cool album. Yeah,
sweet.
Thank you, Butch. We will reconvene and do a part 2 because we didn't even get into the nitty gritty. I mean, right. We're just laying a foundation right now. We didn't
even break through the ice yet.
Well, just let me know. I mean, we can get back on the horn here in a little bit if you want. So
okay, cool. Hey, real quick, we got another 1 minute before we go. What's the main guitar you're using right now?
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's see. I've got several, but these two right here are pretty special to me. This is